to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. So this is where the bean poles are going this year. So they're going to go up the back of the two tunnels, and they're also going to sort of jut out slightly there, and it's going to go to the end of the rhubarb, so about another foot or so after these lines. So the way I always do it, I'll just quickly explain. I'll put two lines down, which is basically the two lines of the sticks, and basically what I always do is tie the top together with cable ties. Now, if you try and string the cable, the poles together, I always find that you can never get them quite tight, and they've got a tendency of coming out or sort of coming loose. So I always use these cable ties, and as you can see, I've used them a couple of times before. So I always recycle them at the end of the year just by sort of carefully taking them off, putting a screwdriver up the side there, and then you can basically release them. So basically the way that I do it, and I'll show you in the stages I'm doing it, I put a stick in the middle here going up, and then every 8 foot I'll put one stick going up along like that, and then I'll put the middle one in, which kind of goes along the top, and then as soon as I've done that, I'll start to put up the sort of making the A-frame bit, if you like. So what I'll do is I'll get the middle bit up, and then I'll show you what it looks like in a few moments. Okay, so that's the two ends, as you can see there and there. I've made like the A-frame, and then in the middle I've put the upright, so between the sort of horizontals. Now what I always do is when I put these poles in, I always use the biggest, so the biggest, most sturdy poles, if you like, and then use the thinner ones to go sort of in between. But the ones that I put across the top, and these ones, which are really the structural ones, those are always the sort of the thickest, or some of the thickest poles that I've got. So basically just putting in the middle of the two rows all the way down, measured by the length of the the ones on the floor, the 8 foot ones run on the floor. Now these ones that are on the floor obviously go across the top now. So what I'll do is I'll just put them across the top, and then sort of step back a bit and check that they're level, and then I'll be able to put all of the sort of the other ones going up either side. Okay, so this is where OCD comes into play a little bit, but as you can see, the top one's perfectly straight that way. And if I just come round here, that's the first thing you need to get right. So basically what I've done is I've just put the cable ties on, not really tightly. I'll excuse the sun a little bit. And then as you can see, if you look at it up that way, the two ends need to be upright. Now because of the way you get the sticks at the top, it kind of goes a bit sort of, I don't know, a bit funky at the top, but don't worry about that. So basically you need to make sure that these are upright, yeah, and then the pieces straight along the top. And I've just put these in, I've just tightened, now I know it's straight, I've actually tightened these up, where I put them in loose to start with, just so I can move them up and down till they're right. And then, as you can see, the top bit there's upright. Now what I do now is put all the side ones in, and basically don't tie them in at the top, just push them in so they're resting against the top either side all the way along. Then every time I get to one of these uprights, what I'll do is I'll make sure that that's perfectly upright, as in level, and then I'll tie it off at the top, or as close as I can get it to the top anyway. So basically I'll just move that backwards and forwards like that until I know that it's upright. Then if I get this one, that one and that one upright, I know the two ends are upright, then all the rest I can just quickly tie in, and I know they're all upright. This may sound a bit daft, but if you get it all straight, level, upright, and then you get the cross pieces in, if you do get some wind, because obviously when all the beans have grown up this, you're going to have a reasonable amount of weight on the top of this, it's worthwhile getting it right, because if you don't get it quite right, and it's a bit wonky and you haven't got things level and stuff like that, you're going to get more stresses on some parts than others, and basically you can get the bean canes falling over. So I'm not being daft, it is well worthwhile getting this right whilst you're putting them up. Okay, so now I've got the side ones in, and sometimes they don't quite you know, sort of stand against the thing after you push them in. Now I've put a lot of grass cuttings and manure under here, so I've struggled to get these in the ground a little bit, but obviously, you know, that's perfectly good as long as you've got them in. Now these have gone in the ground something like about 9 inches or possibly more than 9 inches, but you know, you need them in the ground, and you need to you know feel that they're sort of well anchored in the ground. Now if the wind does blow sort of along here, it is going to try and push these over, so I've obviously got to make sure that you know, that the whole structure's not going to blow over when it's got a lot of weight on the top, because these do end up being quite top heavy. Now I've got to this first pole here, so what I'm going to do now is tie these two off at the top, so that I know that that's perfectly upright. So they're going to be tied off at the top there, so I know that's perfectly upright. So I'm just waiting for the camera to adjust, and then as soon as I've done that, what I'll do is I'll then tie in all of these others at the top, obviously pairing them up as they are at the bottom, and then what I'm going to do then is put a diagonal in. Now what the diagonal will do is stop the whole thing sort of rocking backwards and forward like that. So basically a diagonal is all it is just I typically use one of the thinner canes, and what you do is just go in at the corner at the bottom there, straight the way across like that, and then attach it there and to any pole going down with cable ties again, so obviously here, here and so on up. And then what that will do is it'll stop the whole thing from rocking backwards and forwards. So I'll do that now. Okay, so we're running out of light a little bit, but just wanted to show you, obviously we've got the diagonal here. Now in the middle, I've got to put a few more cable ties on here and here, just to tie that in, but basically every cane will be tied. But I've got this kind of A-frame going across, and basically what you need to do is tie that in to every post going down, and it'll stop the whole thing sort of rocking. I mean, if you look at there, that's just the flex in the the bamboo canes. If you look at that bit there, I'm just wobbling it side to side. It's not actually moving there, which is obviously anchoring it. And then it's exactly the same thing at this side. I've got these uprights here, just like I've got at the other end. Then that'll obviously anchor this from moving backwards and forwards. So the whole structure is very kind of sturdy now. The whole, if I sort of come here and just push the whole thing, as you can see, it's nice and sturdy. And what I've done here is I've just put a couple of at the end to make like a rounded bit at the end. I haven't done that at the end because I've got the onions there and I need to get around to pick the beans. But if I just come back here a little bit, so you can see, so that's where the beans are going to be this year. And so if there's a bit of wind, and as you can see, the row of bean canes is perfectly straight and upright. Okay, so just to a few of the questions and comments that have come through in the last week. The first one comes from Dave Rourke. Thank you for all your comments, Dave. And he's basically asked, what type of cucumbers did I get? Now the cucumbers, that was the label that was with the cucumbers, and basically it's just called F1 female. The thing you need to watch when you're buying cucumbers is make sure that you get a female plant. What you can get, there are some strains of cucumber which are both male and female, which are obviously the more natural ones. The problem that you get with them is if the female flower gets pollinated, it'll turn the sort of cucumber bitter. Obviously you get all the sort of seeds in there anyway, but it'll kind of send it bitter, and it's not really nice. So if you do buy the cucumber plants with both male and female plants, both male and female flowers, sorry, what you need to do is go around and pull all the male flowers off, which is a real pain in the backside, to be honest with you. So what I always do is I always make sure, irrespective of what variety that I get, it's always female. If you get the purely female type, then you just let them grow, and every cucumber will be fine. So if you are going out to buy either seeds or plants, make sure that the variety you get is female only. A hybrid, which is female. If you do that, you can't go wrong really. Pretty much they're all the same. The next one comes from Shannon Robinson. Thank you for all your comments, Shannon. And she was saying where she is in the world. She's put in now the third lot of parsnips, because basically saying they're all coming up, and the earwigs, she's got loads of earwigs in the garden, and she said they're as bad as slugs basically, and they're going through and eating all of the little baby parsnips. So she said she's had a real sort of game with that, but I honestly don't know what you can do with earwigs. What I would suggest is putting possibly garlic down on the, you know, make yourself up a garlic solution and put that down. That almost certainly deter them. But obviously, just like other insects and aphids and that, they don't have lungs and sort of breathe like we do. So if you get garlic on them, it'll basically sort of stop them from breathing and kill them off, sort of thing. So the only thing I can really suggest is unless you buy some kind of powder or other to deal with them, I would suggest putting garlic on them. That's probably the best thing you can do, or at least you know, what I would suggest to do if I got a problem. The other thing that she said as well was with sweet potatoes. She said she's growing this purple variety, and what she's done, she's put the sweet potato in a jam jar. And if you remember, when I did the jam jar, 100 ways to use a jam jar, or 50 ways, wherever it was, basically that's one of the things that you can do. Now what you do is you get a sweet potato, sit it in the top of a jar with just the bottom, about a quarter of it covered in water, and then what the sweet potato will do is obviously take that water up, and it'll send out little shoots out the side, which are called slips. As soon as you've done that, you pull these shoots off and basically root them. That's exactly what somebody's done with this. So that's basically a slip off a you know, red potato, sorry, sweet potato. Now I did try this last year, to be honest with you. What I did is I got some sweet potatoes. I got a couple of sweet potatoes and put them in jam jars, and to be honest with you, I had absolutely no success with it whatsoever. So this year I went out and bought the actual plants. As I say, you can buy the you know, the little slips, the shoots off the internet, but you know, we saw these plants, so that's what I did. But that's basically, if you have got a sweet potato and you want to try and get plants off it, what you need to do is sit it in a jam jar with some water, so the bottom part of it's covered with water, and then the sweet potato will throw shoots out basically. This seems to be quite a common thing to do in America. Possibly we don't have the environment to have it in the UK. I did try to do it actually in the kitchen window last year, and I had the sweet potato in there for about a month and just nothing happened, so I kind of gave up. But that's, you know, that's one way to do sweet potatoes. The next comment, number 3, comes from Richard Sydenham, and he was basically saying about the chives. If you remember, I put out a question last week. All of the chives are sort of flowering, which is quite unusual for this time of year. Normally the chives sort of flower a little bit later on, and so I was a little bit concerned it was, you know, it was going to run to seed and then basically not grow anymore. And he says, don't worry, just let the flowers dry off, and then take all the flowers off, and it'll carry on growing. And obviously you can keep cutting it and stuff like that. Obviously you can use the flowers in cooking anyway, but he was saying what it does do, the chive flowers actually attract sort of insects and little wasps and stuff which kill aphids, so it is actually quite beneficial to the garden. I'm not sure if I'm going to attract them here, but obviously where you know, where Richard is, obviously it attracts them there. So what I'll do is I'll just let them flower, because they are quite pretty anyway, and then I'll take the flowers off afterwards, and you know, it'll carry on. So thank you for your tip, Richard. Next one comes from Ken. Hi Ken, thank you for your comment. And he said they're sweet potatoes, and he said he'd like to try, but he hasn't got any more room in his greenhouse, so he's going to try next year. Ken, you can grow these outside. All you need to do is wait till the end of May. So if you can get yourself a couple of plants or some slips over the internet, or you know, wherever, I'm going to grow these outside. So those 2 tubes that I showed you last week, what I'm going to do is actually place them halfway down the allotment, and I'm going to plant these 2 sweet potato plants in there. So you know, you can grow them outside. All it says on the labels of these is basically you can grow them outside, but what you need to do is be careful of the frosts. So if you wait till the end of this month, you'll be able to put them out, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So in a couple of weeks' time, I'll show you me planting them outside. I'm going to put them in these tubes, put some really nice, good quality soil in there, and some you know, a bit of manure and stuff like that, and get it nice and sweet. I'm going to put them in there, and then I'll obviously water them in the trays, and I'll show you that. I am going to make like a bit of a, you know, as I explained last week, I'm going to put some bamboo sticks in there and make some kind of framework so they grow up that like a vine. But that's one of the experiments. But Ken, you can put these outside, so if you've got a bit of room outside, go get yourself a couple of slips or a couple of plants and you'll be able to do it this year. The next one comes from Nigel over in Wolverhampton, Muddy Boots. Hi Nigel. And he was saying about on his allotment site, there's one guy that's got a variety of rhubarb. Now I was saying I've actually got two types. I've got a vegetable type and a red type, which is like a pudding type. The pudding type that I've got is called strawberry, but he was saying if anybody's going out and buying some rhubarb, look for a variety called Stockbridge Arrow. That's STOCKBRIDG, Stockbridge Arrow, as in what you throw, ARROW. And he was saying it's a really nice rhubarb, so that comes highly recommended from Nigel. So if you're going to go out and buy yourself a rhubarb plant, you know, a root or whatever to put in your allotment, look out for that Stockbridge Arrow. Apparently it's a good variety. Next one, another one from Ken Fuller, and Ken was saying he's really excited because he's got all of his sweet corn ready, he's got all of his beans and squashes and all the rest of it to put out, and he's like really anxious to put them out, but obviously he can't yet. Ken, don't worry, in a couple of weeks time, you know, at the end of May, you'll be able to put all this stuff out, so don't worry, it's only just round the corner. To be honest with you, the beans that I put in, I was a little bit early this year, they're reasonably big now. There's a reasonably good example of it. So they're going on for, I'd say, about 18 inches high now. To be honest with you, really these need to go out now. So I was a bit too keen putting them out at the back end of last month. I've put another load in this week, but what I might do, to be honest with you, with the beans, what I might do is try my arm, and I'm going to put some beans in potentially next week, which I know is a little bit early. I did this last year and they did survive, so it's a bit of a gamble, you know, with the frosts. Some other people on my plot have also put their beans out, and what they've done is they've just put some shuttering around the bottom, so if there is a frost, it'll, you know, sort of protect them a little bit from the frost. The other thing you can do is put some fleece round. The other thing I was going to say is with your squashes and your you know, your gourds and stuff like that. Now mine are also getting quite big. That's what's that? That's a courgette plant. So as you can see, really I could put these out as well. Now, Chris, a guy over the way there, he typically puts his out this time of year. And what he does, he'll put them out in the ground. And what he does is he makes like a wigwam out of sticks, so like a rounded sort of shape out of sticks. So basically, just get 6 bendy sticks, not bamboo canes like I don't know, branches off a tree or wherever, like I did the apple sticks last year, and basically put sort of 5 or 6 of them in a circle round the plant, bend them all in, and then tie them in the middle, so you end up with like a dome shape all the way around the courgette or the pumpkin plant or wherever. And then as soon as you've done that, put some plastic over. So what you make like is like, you know, the Eden project down in Cornwall, where you've got like them sort of dome shaped plastic things. What he does is he makes one of them all the way around all of his sort of courgettes, pumpkins and all the rest of it. And he's always really good at growing them. He puts them out about this time of year, makes this structure around them, puts some polythene over, and then just peg it down with some little bits of sort of willow stick or something like that, so the wind doesn't blow the polythene off. Leave them like that over the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks. The plant establishes itself in the end of this month, and then come the end of May, when you know there's no frost, you can pull off the plastic and the sticks and all the rest of it, and just sort of leave them to it. So if you do want to put your pumpkins out and your courgettes and stuff like that, even though it's a bit of a risk, you can put them out. Just put some kind of cloche over them like Chris does, and you'll be all right. As I say, he does it every year and he never has a problem. Next one comes from another one from Ken Fuller, and he said, will I protect the cherry tree from the birds? Yes. All of the trees that I'm putting along the row, I've got obviously 3 fruit trees. I've got apple and pear. I don't really need to protect them. The cherry tree in the middle and the 2 jostoberry bushes either side. There is method in my madness. If you know, there's 2 wind vanes either side of the fence. Yeah. Next to them are the 2 trees I don't need to protect from the birds, and I've done this deliberately. So I've got the apple tree on one side, I've got the pear tree on the other side. In the middle, where there's no weather vane, I've got the cherry tree and the 2 jostoberry bushes. The reason I've put them 2 in the middle, I know I didn't explain this before, but this is the thinking behind it. The cherry tree in the middle and the two Jostraberry bushes either side are the two that the birds are going to go for. So what I'm going to do is, when they're in fruit later in the year, I'm going to put some netting over the structure to just to protect them from the birds. So what I will do is the two posts which are going up in the middle, what I will do is make like a T-piece at the top, which will just make a bit of a structure to hold the net whilst it's there. I haven't done that bit yet, but I am planning to do that slightly later in the year. The cherry tree is unlikely to fruit this year because obviously I've cut the branches off and I'm sort of training it along, and to be honest with you, I don't really want it to fruit. The Jostraberry bushes have got some fruit on the branches I've left on anyway, so what I'll do is I'll just sort of leave them, or possibly throw a little bit of net over for this year, but really it'll be next year I'm expecting the trees and the bush to fruit, so I'll be putting some net over sort of this time, or sort of not this time next year, but a little bit later next year. So yes, I will be doing, and that's why I've put those three in the middle, so you know the weather vanes aren't in the way, so I can put the net over basically. The next one, another one from Nigel in Muddy Boots, and he was saying soaking the peas first before you're sowing them. I don't know if I've showed you the clip, but I have actually put another batch of peas in, and I have soaked them. I've also soaked the lentils as well, and I also soaked the chickpeas a little bit before I put them in. So yes, I've tried this. I actually soaked the peas last year. I didn't do it first time round this year because normally you know, you're normally alright, but because the peas failed the first time round, what I've done is I've soaked the second batch. So thank you very much for your tip, Nigel, and anybody out there who's thinking of putting peas in. What I typically do is the day before you put them in the ground, just put them in a little tray like that. In fact, there's some lentils in there that I planted earlier. Just put a little tray there. These are the ones that you get mushrooms and stuff like that one from the supermarket. Always save your little pots. And all I do is just put the peas in there, put about sort of 2 or 3 inches of water in there, just leave them overnight. Overnight they'll all soak up and swell. Then just pour the excess water off and plant them like that. So it helps the germination no end. And if you look at the packet, it actually suggests that you do that as well. So good tip, Nigel. So anybody sowing peas, soak them the night before you're intending to put them in. The next one's from Foodie Laura, and she was saying her comfrey is also flowering. Should she take the flowers off? I'll show you when I do the tour later today. I don't know if it's going to be on this video or possibly the next. I'll show you the comfrey now. It's all flowering basically. Thing you need to be careful with comfrey, it is a prolific seeder unless you get the inert variety, which is the block. I can't remember the name of it. Block 15 or something like that. Sorry, I'll write it in the bottom what it is. But if you get the standard comfrey like I've got, if it flowers, what you need to do is either cut it down or pull the flowers off, because the seeds are just going to go everywhere and you'll get a garden full of comfrey. So yes, do pull the flowers off. If you're going to make the comfrey tea to make the fertiliser for your greenhouse, typically I'll let it grow about sort of 3 or 4 foot high before 3 foot high, 3.5 foot high before I cut it down. Because I've moved this, I think it's why potentially that it's flowered early. If other people are getting it flowering, it's possibly because of the weather. We've had this warm weather, then a sort of wet snap. So that's possibly the reason why it's flowered early, but most certainly you don't want it to seed because it'll just go everywhere. What I might do is cut it down now and make the first batch of fertiliser. The last one comes from Phil's Gardening Tips, and he was talking about thermal mass. And what this is basically you have a barrel in your greenhouse and you fill the barrel with water and paint it black, and then over the day the barrel warms up, and then over the night it gives out the heat as well. It is a good tip. The problem is if you've got a greenhouse or a reasonably small greenhouse, if you put 2 barrels in there full of water, potentially it's going to be taking up a lot of room in your greenhouse. But if you have got a reasonably large greenhouse, it is a way of keeping it warm in the night and keeping the frost off. So that's all the comments for this week. Okay, so just moving around, I've got the sunflowers, calendulas, sweet peas and everything. I'll give them a bit of water in a minute. Lettuce has been tacked by something, I'm not quite sure what. Those are the leeks hardening off. Hydrangeas are doing okay, they're ready to go out now. This stuff here, which is supposed to be I think the salad leaf, but I'm not quite sure because I've left it because it didn't look right, but it's sort of coming to flower. Chives are doing really well, lavender's okay. As you can see, this comfrey as well is also coming to flower. And I've left them on because leave them for the bees, to be honest with you. Asparagus is doing, I don't know if you can see it from the contrast, but the asparagus is doing quite well. It's about kind of 4 foot tall now. I've got all of the espalier trees in now, so we've now got the pear in. I had to dig a metre hole there. Then we've got a josterbury bush, then an apple tree in the middle, sorry, a cherry tree in the middle, then another josterbury bush, and then right at the end, just here, is the apple tree. Potatoes are coming through. I need to hoe these up because there's a few weeds coming as well, but they're doing quite well. Potatoes are coming through here as well, as you can see the odd one here. These are all nasturtiums, which I'm going to have to fetch out. The onions are starting to do really well. A few potatoes coming through which I need to pull out, unfortunately, but the onions are doing quite well at the moment. And just to quickly show you in this tunnel here, the normal broccoli has really established itself. I've not given it any water yet, apart from the day when I put them in, but the watering has been done really by the rain. I've noticed a few of the leaves have come off, which is possibly down to lack of water, so I'll give these a bit of water. I've also noticed there's been a bit of evidence of slugs knocking about, so even though I did put some slug pellets down, probably the rain saw them off, and I'll put some more slug pellets down shortly. So moving on, there's absolutely no sign of the spinach yet. I'm going to give that a bit of water now. These are all of the Swedes, and they're growing okay. I've not given them too much water recently, but what I'll do is I'll give them a bit of water tonight. These are the parsnips. Again, I've not seen any signs of the parsnips yet. These are the ones that are chitted, so I'll give those a little teeny bit of water. I'm not going to give them too much. And again, there's another 2 rows of beetroot there. Nothing come through as of yet. The rhubarb is really showing the fact that the ground's drying up a bit. We've had a couple of really sort of windy, hot days, and as you can see, they're starting to flop over a little bit, which is a good sign that the ground's drying up a little bit and warming up. And here is the bean poles that I put up last night, which was earlier on in this video. So there's the wind, and the bean poles all ready to go. And just very quickly, you can see from this side again, the onions are doing quite well. They're about 10 inches tall now, some of them. I need to get these pesky potatoes out. Obviously this is where the potatoes were last year. The spinach is really starting to run to seed now. So as you can see, I've been pulling quite a few leaves off. And what I've been doing is taking off the flower heads and feeding them to the chickens, just to try and hold them back a bit. But I'm kind of, obviously they are eventually going to run to seed. There's nothing I can do about that, but I'm just trying to hold them back as much as I can. But that's the spinach, and here are the espalier trees. Sorry, there's the apple. You can see with the sun shining on everything, and there's the others down there. So we've got a pear over there, then we've got the cherry tree in the middle, and then we've got the apple tree over here. The raspberries are looking a bit sorry for themselves, to be honest with you. For some reason I've got a bit of a bulb patch here, so unfortunately I think that raspberry that's there's not come through this year, so I'll have to dig that out and put another one in. And the strawberries, as you can see, they're flowering quite nicely. There's quite a few weeds coming through, which is a little bit disappointed. I've got a lemon balm plant coming through there, so that's obviously going to have to come out because that's quite invasive. It's kind of like a mint balm is, so that's going to have to come out. And I've got some bindweed as well, which I need to treat. The plants that I bobbed in last week seem to have taken hold, so I think that water that they had the other week is starting to come on, but they're nowhere near as thick and sort of bush as they were last year. So what I'm going to do is give them some juice from the wormery that I saved last year, just to try and bring them on a bit. So that's the allotment this week. So thank you for watching this episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Thank you to all of the subscribers. Please put any comments or questions you've got below, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye now.